What if I told you the Eiffel Tower was once considered a mistake? Before it became a symbol, it was mocked, hated, rejected. It was rushed into existence, built under pressure, never meant to survive. Plans were made to tear it down, but history didn't listen. What was built in urgency survived by neglect. What survived became an icon. More than iron, more than structure, it became emotion. And before the world could explain it, the Eiffel Tower became a symbol everyone recognized. This is the story you were never told. Today, the Eiffel Tower stands as one of the most recognizable structures on Earth. But its power doesn't come from height. It comes from the meaning the world has attached to it. Millions see it as a symbol of love, of travel, of Paris itself. That meaning didn't exist at the beginning. It wasn't planned. It wasn't designed. It was built over time, through resistance, doubt, and survival. Before the Eiffel Tower ever touched the skyline, Paris already believed it was the center of the world. It was a city of art, of history, of tradition. Its beauty came from stone, from symmetry, from the past it proudly protected. But while Paris admired its past, the world outside was changing fast. Cities were racing toward the future, measuring progress in steel, height, and ambition. And for the first time, Paris felt something unfamiliar, the fear of being left behind. This wasn't about beauty anymore. It was about relevance. France needed a statement, something bold, something unmistakable. Not to preserve the past, but to announce its future. And then came an opportunity the world couldn't ignore. The World's Fair, a global stage where nations competed to prove who was leading the future. For France, it was more than an exhibition. It was a deadline, a moment to leave a mark on the world. So Franz asked a dangerous question. What if we didn't follow the world? What if we tried to rise above it? The proposal that followed didn't sound ambitious. It sounded impossible. A structure taller than anything the world had ever seen, built not from stone, but from iron. The idea was bold. Too bold for its time. Engineers questioned it. Artists mocked it. Officials hesitated. No one could agree on how it would stand, or if it should be built at all. But when the doubts refused to disappear, one name kept returning to the conversation. Not as a dreamer, not as a politician, but as a man who had already done what others believed was impossible. Gustave Eiffel. Eiffel didn't see iron as a limitation. He saw it as freedom. Where others saw weight, he saw balance. Where others feared height, he saw precision. To him, this tower wasn't madness. It was mathematics. But clarity doesn't guarantee acceptance. When the idea was finally presented, it didn't inspire awe. It sparked resistance. Critics called it reckless. Artists called it ugly. Officials called it unnecessary. To many, it wasn't a breakthrough. It was a threat.
What began as criticism didn't stay polite for long. The discomfort turned into anger. Newspapers attacked it. Artists signed letters against it. Writers warned it would scar the soul of Paris. To them, this wasn't progress. It was an insult.
But walking away was no longer an option. France had announced it to the world. The World's Fair was coming, and the eyes of every major nation were watching. To cancel the tower now wouldn't just mean changing a plan. It would mean admitting fear. So, despite the backlash, despite the ridicule, the decision was made. They would build it anyway.
What came next was not architecture. It was a gamble against nature itself. No one had ever tried to raise iron this high, this exposed, this unforgiving. The wind would fight it.
How much longer?
Gravity would
Almost
punish
done.
it.
Hang in there.
And a single mistake would not just bend
Hold the
metal,
line. Swing
it would
left.
end
Guide it in.
lives.
Steady now, all's clear.
This was no longer about beauty. This was about whether human hands could control something this tall before it collapsed under its own ambition. The danger did not come only from height. It began below the ground.
See that crack is getting
Beneath
wider.
Paris,
Yeah.
the soil
We need
was
to shore this up
soft,
now. I'll get the
uneven,
timber.
unforgiving.
Keep it steady, the level's
To hold
rising.
something
Watch
this
the edge,
tall,
slick.
the foundation had to fight gravity
This adjustment
long
here will reduce
before the
friction.
tower ever
Aye, but we
did.
must ensure the tolerances.
Engineers
Measurements alike.
calculated loads no one had tested before. Not with computers, not with simulations. Only
These
paper,
supports don't match the
only
plans.
experience,
Let me check the specs.
only
This beam here is
judgment.
critical. I'll mark it.
Every number mattered. Every assumption carried risk. If the ground shifted, if the wind amplified, if the math was wrong, the entire structure would fail before it ever reached the sky. But this is where the story changes. Because the engineers did not retreat. They listened to the ground. They studied the wind. They adjusted the design.
Agreed. I'll adjust the
Foundations
measurements.
were widened. Loads were redistributed. Every calculation was checked, then checked again. They didn't fight nature head-on. They worked with it. Wind was allowed to pass through the structure, not push against it. Weight was spread, not concentrated. What looked fragile was becoming intelligent. This was no longer just construction. It was problem-solving at a scale the world had never seen before. But while the engineers found their answers, the city did not.
C'est incroyable,
To
n'est-ce
many
pas?
in Paris,
Oui, un spectacle
this structure
impressionnant.
did not look intelligent. It looked wrong. Too tall, too skeletal, too different from anything the city had ever known. Artists called it an eyesore. Writers called it a scar. Some said it threatened the soul of Paris itself. What engineers saw as
We must keep
progress,
moving forward.
others saw as a loss. A fear that something familiar was being replaced by something cold and mechanical. The tower was standing, but acceptance had not even begun. With opposition growing, the tower needed more than strength. It needed a reason to exist. So its defenders did something unexpected. They stopped talking about beauty and started talking about usefulness. The tower became a laboratory, a platform for experiments, a tool for science. From its height, engineers studied wind behavior. scientists tested radio signals, sending messages farther than ever before. The atmosphere itself became something they could observe. Suddenly, destroying the tower meant destroying research, progress, knowledge. What was once called useless became inconvenient to remove. And that inconvenience quietly saved its life.
Even after it proved useful, the tower was never truly safe. It stood through moments where destruction felt inevitable. Plans were discussed, deadlines were imagined, orders were written, and quietly ignored. Wars arrived, priorities shifted, bigger threats demanded attention. At times, the tower was spared not because it was valued, but because it was forgotten. Too large to move, too inconvenient to remove, too useful to destroy. What once stood as a mistake began surviving simply because the world kept changing faster than decisions could be made. The tower did not win love. It outlasted opposition.
Something changed. Not overnight, not with applause, not with approval, but with time. The tower that once stood unwanted became familiar, and familiarity has a quiet power. People stopped arguing about it, stopped noticing it, stopped imagining Paris without it. It became a reference point, a shadow people walked under, a shape they used to describe direction, a presence that anchored the city. Without permission, the tower slipped into daily life. What survived by neglect was now surviving by belonging. And for the first time, the Eiffel Tower was no longer fighting the city. It was becoming part of it. And then something unexpected happened. People didn't just accept the tower. They began to feel something for it. Not because it was beautiful, not because it was elegant, but because it was always there. It watched generations grow up. It stood through wars, celebrations, heartbreaks, and reunions. It became the silent witness to millions of personal stories. People met beneath it, waited under it, returned to it. Photographs were taken, memories were anchored, promises were made.
Me too. It's
Slowly,
perfect.
the
Just
Eiffel
like
Tower
us.
stopped being just iron and steel. It became a feeling, a place where moments mattered. And without any official decision,
It's beautiful,
without
isn't
any
it?
announcement,
Yes,
the
it
Eiffel
is.
Tower
Just like
became a symbol of love.
And then the world noticed. What began as something personal slowly crossed borders. Postcards carried its image, films framed it, artists painted it, writers referenced it. People who had never been to Paris recognized it instantly. The tower stopped belonging only to the city. It became shorthand for Paris itself, for France, for romance, for memory. No explanation needed. If it appeared on screen, you knew where you were. If it stood in the background, you knew what it meant. The structure once rejected for being too different had become the most recognizable symbol of the nation, not because it tried to represent France, but because France allowed it to become itself. And in doing so, the Eiffel Tower became a symbol the world agreed on.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Just like you.